eyes in the water. Luke and Emily were the kind of couple who lived for adventure, always seeking out new experiences. So, when Luke suggested a weekend trip to the secluded Willow Pond, far from the city's noise, Emily agreed, excitement stirring despite a strange feeling she couldn't quite place. The road was winding and narrow, cutting through dense woods that loomed over them, casting long shadows that swallowed the daylight. A chill crept into the car, the temperature dropping as they ventured deeper, and a dense mist began to slither through the trees, curling around them. Luke's confident smile faltered, and he glanced over at Emily. "We're almost there," he said, his voice thin, more to convince himself than her. They arrived at Willow Pond, a still, dark expanse of water surrounded by trees bent inward as if drawn by an invisible force. The water's surface reflected the sky with an unnatural clarity, its black mirror stillness unsettling. An eerie silence blanketed the place. There were no birds, no wind, only the faint rustling of the trees. Emily's gaze locked onto the pond, a strange unease twisting in her gut. "Something feels wrong, Luke. Do you feel it?" Luke forced a reassuring smile. "It's just the quiet. We're not used to it." But he felt it too. A weight, as though unseen eyes were watching from beneath the water. They set up a picnic by the pond, trying to ignore the oppressive silence, but every rustle of the trees felt like a whisper in their ears. As they ate, Emily's gaze kept drifting to the water, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. Then a single ripple spread across the pond's surface, breaking its perfect stillness. "Did you see that?" Emily asked, her voice barely audible. Luke nodded, standing slowly. "Maybe a fish?" But he didn't believe it. The water moved with purpose. A shape began to rise from the pond, pale and skeletal, draped in rotting moss and muck. Bony arms stretched forward, dragging a twisted body with jerking, unnatural movements toward the shore. Its face was hidden beneath matted wet hair, but hollow black eyes stared directly at Emily. She stumbled backward, a scream catching in her throat as Luke grabbed her, pulling her up, but neither could look away. The thing crawled from the water, leaving a trail of slime, and then the whispers began, soft, desperate voices drifting through the trees. "She needs you. You're hers now." "We need to go," Emily choked, her heart hammering. They turned to flee, but the mist rose thickly around them, blinding and suffocating, trapping them in a haze that seemed to close in. They heard the sickening scrape of the creature's body inching closer, and the whispers grew louder, urgent, pleading. Through a break in the fog, another figure appeared at the water's edge, a tall woman in tattered, waterlogged clothes. She turned slowly, her decayed face twisted in agony, her hollow eyes fixed on Luke. Luke's voice shook. Who are you?" Her mouth opened, but no sound came out, only the gasping rasp of someone drowning. The pond's surface began to churn, black water rising in waves though no wind stirred. Emily screamed as pale hands reached up from the earth, clawing at her ankles, trying to pull her down. Luke yanked her back, narrowly escaping the grasping fingers. But more figures were rising from the pond, their twisted bodies lurching forward, dead eyes fixed on the couple. "We're not getting out of here," Emily cried, her voice breaking as the whispers filled her mind. She could feel cold hands brushing her arms, each one clammy as death. Through the mist, Luke spotted the car. He grabbed her hand. "Run, Emily! Don't stop!" They sprinted, dodging the cursed souls surrounding them. But as they reached the car, Emily felt a cold hand close around her ankle, pulling her to the ground. She looked back to see a half-rotted figure, its black mouth stretched into a smile. "Join us! In the deep!" Luke pulled her up just as the creature's grip slipped away. They scrambled into the car, slamming the doors shut, breaths ragged. Luke twisted the key, but the engine sputtered and died. Outside, the pale figures surrounded the car, pressing decayed faces against the windows, hollow eyes staring, hands scraping the glass. Through the windshield, the woman appeared, her skeletal face inches away. She raised one bony hand, pressing it to the hood, and the whispers stopped. A silence fell, thick and heavy. The woman leaned forward, her eyes empty, and whispered, her voice sharp and broken. "You can't leave. She's already taken you." Suddenly, her hand plunged through the windshield, shattering it. Luke and Emily screamed, ducking as glass rained down. The cursed souls outside clawed at the broken window, trying to pull them out, their cold fingers scraping over Emily's skin. But in one final frantic effort, the engine roared to life. Luke hit the gas, and the car lurched forward, throwing the figures off balance. They sped down the road, leaving the fog and the whispers behind. They drove in silence, neither daring to look back until the mist cleared and the warmth of daylight touched their faces. "Are we safe?" Emily whispered, her voice trembling. Luke glanced at her, his face pale and haunted. "I don't know, but we're never going back there." Days passed, but the sense of dread lingered. Emily woke each night to faint whispers, catching glimpses of shadows moving in the corners of her vision. She felt cold hands on her shoulders when she was alone, a shiver that wouldn't leave. One evening, standing in front of her bathroom mirror, she noticed her reflection. But her reflection was smiling, a smile she hadn't made. And in the corner of the room, half hidden in shadow, the woman from Willow Pond stood, watching with hollow eyes. They had left Willow Pond, but it hadn't let them go. Thank you for joining me in the shadows. If you enjoyed the journey, please subscribe and share a creepy Vault 45 with friends, because some chills are best when we're not alone.